And welcome back. It's Jason Walter here, and thank you so much for joining me in today's video. I appreciate you. I want to provide an update regarding what we're seeing right now in the US regarding pending home sales, close home sales, home prices, and of course, much more in today's video. This video is going to be based on my own analysis regarding Redfin's latest housing market trends, which of course covers much of the United States here. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I have a lot to share. Let's first talk about home sold prices in the US, because according to Redfin here, home sold prices fell year over year in 18 of the 50 most populous US metros. So out of the 50 most populous metros in the US, 18 of these cities have recorded decreases in home prices on a year-over-year basis. By comparison though, 20 metros saw a price decline on a year-over-year basis in their prior 4-week period. So the last housing market update, which was posted about a week ago, 20 metros posted decreases in home prices. Now it's 18. Also, 1 month ago, there was only 11 metros recording decreases on a year-over-year basis. So in other words, we did see a slight decrease going from 20 metros 1 week ago down to 18, but compared to 1 month ago, a fairly significant increase going from 11 metros up to 18 last week. It also says that prices fell 10.1% on a year-over-year basis in San Francisco, the biggest decrease of all these metros that Redfin tracks here. But based on my own analysis using Redfin's data here, according to Redfin's data, prices are down 20% from last May. So home prices, the median sold price in San Francisco has declined by about 20% from May of last year. That's based on closed home sales. But also based on my own analysis using the California Association of Realtors data, home sold prices in San Francisco are nearly at a 2-year low. In other words, the gains we saw back in 2021 and also the first half of 2022 have virtually been wiped out because home prices have decreased so much ever since the spring and summer months last year. I do want to mention that again because when we're talking about year-over-year changes, this 10.1% decrease in San Francisco accounts for the fact we did see an increase or a big increase in home prices in the first half of 2022. So I think it's really important to have a look at decreases compared to the highs we saw back last year, which was around May and June last year. In any case, San Francisco fell the most on a year-over-year basis. And also in San Jose, they fell by 6.7%. Austin, Texas, they decreased by 5.5% on a year-over-year basis though. But when looking at home sold prices compared to last May in Austin, Texas, they have declined by about 21%. So huge decline since the peak that we saw last year. Also on a year-over-year basis, Detroit saw prices fall by 4.3%, 3.8% in Seattle, 3.7% in Phoenix, 3.4% in Sacramento, 3.1% in San Diego, 2.8% in Anaheim, California, and down by 2.5% in Chicago, 2.4% in Los Angeles, 2.3% in Oakland, and 2.2% in Boston. Also, the median sold price fell less than 2% in Riverside, California, Portland, Oregon, New York, Newark, New Jersey, as well as Las Vegas. Redfin also touches on that average 30-year fixed rate mortgages are averaging at 6.15% for the week ended January 19th. This is based on Freddie Mac's data though. They also say here the daily average rate is at 6.04% on January 18th. Again, at the time of this video, which is actually January 25th, rates have actually been increasing. So according to the Mortgage News Daily, for people with exceptional credit, of course, rates right now are at 6.18%, a little bit higher than the rate right here at 6.04% that was set on January 18th. Also for a VA loan is at 5.82%, FHA loan is at 5.78%, a 30-year fix is at 6.18%. From 1 year ago, rates have increased by 2.52 percentage points because 1 year ago, rates were averaging at 3.66%. Now they're at 6.18%. Also, according to Investopedia.com, as of today, rates are averaging at 6.49% for an average 30-year fixed rate mortgage. Here's also Redfin's key housing market takeaways for the 400 plus US metros that actually track. This data actually covers the 4 weeks ended January 15th of this year. And by the way, their data goes back through 2015. So let's first talk about home prices, because the median sold price in the US was at $350,000, an increase of 0.9% on a year-over-year basis, the biggest gain in a month. That's saying quite a bit, right? Because a 0.9% increase, the biggest gain in a month at $350,000. Here's the trends we have right now. Again, right now at $350,000, an increase of about 1% on a year-over-year basis. However, though, when you compare prices compared to more or less June of last year, the median sold price in the US was approximately $389,000. This means that home prices have declined by about 10% on a national level ever since May of last year. Something else I just noticed that you guys should be aware of as well is that home prices have been more or less flat ever since the 4 weeks ended November 13th last year. Because back then, the median sold price in the US was approximately $353,000. And for the remainder of the year, there wasn't really much of a fluctuation. It actually went down to $351,000 by year end. And this year as well, which is really only 2 weeks of data, there hasn't been much fluctuation in home prices as well, because right now it's at $350,000. And going back to November, it was approximately $353,000. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with home prices, because if history repeats itself, we should see decreases in home sold prices through more or less mid-February, like we saw back in 2021 as well as 2020. But again, what's going to be very telling is what's going to happen with home prices thereafter, right? Especially in the spring months in March and April, because that's going to be really telling to see what direction our housing market is headed. And going back to Redfin's report right here, it says the median asking price of newly listed houses was $357,200, up by 3.9% year over year, the biggest increase in 2 months. Keep in mind, though, these are only asking prices and not closed home sales. Meanwhile, the monthly mortgage payment on the median asking price home, this is more or less what a home buyer's average housing payment would be in order to buy an average price home, was $2,262 per month at the current 6.15% rate. That's unchanged from last week, but down $245 from October's peak. So home buyers looking to buy a house right now, they also have more options to choose from because we have a lot more houses for sale right now. But also their average monthly housing payment is approximately $245 less per month for people looking to buy an average price home, because rates went from about 7.4% on October 20th. Now they're around 6.1, 6.2%. However, though, because rates have increased approximately 2.5 percentage points from 12 months ago, that's an increase of 30% in your average monthly housing payment. And here's a chart showing the average monthly housing payment here. Again, it peaked back in late October when rates were averaging about 7.4%. And rates have been more or less decreasing ever since then. We have been seeing some slight fluctuations, but going from about 7.4% now to around 6.2% is where we're seeing this decrease in your average monthly housing payment. But again, still up by about 29.5% on a year-over-year basis. As you can see right here, average monthly housing payment at $2,262 per month. And that's compared to the approximately $2,500 payment that we had back in late October last year. Meanwhile, pending home sales were down 29.1% on a year-over-year basis, the first sub 30% drop in 3 months. When they're talking about pending home sales, they're talking about when a home seller accepts an offer from a home buyer, going from active status to pending home sale status. And that's right here, which is listing updates, going from active listings towards pendings, down 29.1%, which is obviously a big decrease compared to the past few years, because the number of listing updates going from active status to pending home sale status is actually below 2020 through 2022. By the way, the red line is 2020, the black line is 2022, the orange line here is 2021. So there's approximately 48,970 houses that became pending, whereas 1 year ago, there's approximately 69,000. In any case, looking at the decrease compared to 1 year ago, down by 29.1%, you have to go back to 2022, all the way back until we hit right here, where we had a decrease of less than 30%. So the last time we saw a decrease below 30% on a year-over-year basis was back in the 4 weeks ended October 16th last year. In other words, this is the first sub 30% decrease going back the past 3 months now. It also says here, among the 50 most populous US metros, pendings fell the most compared to 1 year ago in Las Vegas. Look at that, down 63% on a year-over-year basis. Phoenix, Arizona, down by 56.3%. Austin, Texas, down by about 54%. Nashville, Tennessee, down by about 53%. And Jacksonville, Florida, down by 52.4%. And check this out. It says, though they fell in all 50, they declined the least in Chicago, down by 12.8%. Pittsburgh fell by 20%. San Fran, down by 23%. Boston, 24%. And Cleveland, Ohio, down by 25%. This is really a key headline or key phrase right here. Though they fell in all 50. This means that all of the 50 most populous metros had a decrease in pending home sales compared to 1 year ago. So all 50 of the most populous US metros are recording decreases in pendings compared to 12 months ago. Redfin is also reporting that new listings fell 20% year over year. So we have 20% fewer new listings that hit the market compared to 1 year ago. Meanwhile, active listings, which of course is housing supply, was an increase of 21.8%, the biggest annual increase since 2015. So even though new listings fell by double digits, down by 20%, we saw the biggest increase on a year-over-year basis in active listings, which is really telling me that home buying demand is decreasing big time, given the fact that active listings are only increasing due to houses taking longer to sell, and we're seeing fewer contracts being signed between buyers and sellers. In other words, a decrease in pending home sales. So one more thing I do want to mention regarding new listings, again, down by 20% from 12 months ago. New listings have been falling by double digits on a year-over-year basis, going all the way back until right here. The 4 weeks ended July 31st in 2022. In other words, we've been seeing fewer new listings, down by double digits compared to 12 months ago, really ever since late July and early August of last year. But despite this, active listings, which of course is housing supply, has been increasing. So have a look at this. Here's active listings according to Redfin, an increase of 21.75% compared to the same time period in 2022. So there's approximately 694 active listings according to Redfin this last week. And 1 year ago, there's approximately 570,000. Also back in 2021, there's approximately 717,000. Now again, there's approximately 695,000. And back in 2020 at this time, there was approximately 978,000. So my biggest takeaway regarding this chart right here is that even though we have fewer active listings compared to 2020 as well as 2021, our housing market's still slowing down big time, given the fact that home prices have decreased by about 10% ever since May and June of last year. And also we're seeing a huge decrease in pending home sales as well. And going back to Redfin's report right here, they also touch on the month's supply, which is obviously the measure of the balance between supply and demand, calculated by dividing the number of active listings by closed home sales. So the month's supply right now is at 4 months, up from 3.7 months from 1 week ago and up from 2 months from 1 year ago. What this means, of course, is that the month supply has doubled compared to 12 months ago, and it's sitting at 4 months right now. And here's a chart showing just that, the 4-month housing supply, which is right here in orange, which is obviously much higher compared to 2021. Back in 2021, at this time, the month supply was around 2.5 months, and back in 2022, it was approximately 2 months. So more than double the share, or more than double the number from 12 months ago. But also at 4 months, this is actually a little bit below levels we saw back in 2020, because going back to 2020, the month supply was around 4.4 months. Let's also talk about how fast or how slow houses are selling according to Redfin. So the median days in the market is at 45 days right now. This means it's taking approximately 14 days longer to sell a house compared to the same time frame in 2022. 45 days right now. 1 year ago this time, days in the market was approximately 31 days. And by the way, this is quite a bit different than the all-time record lows that we saw back in more or less May of last year, when days in the market was around 17 to 18 days. Now it's a whopping 45 days. Now here's another wild stat as well, because approximately 21% of houses that sold above the seller's final list price. This means approximately 80% of houses that sold at or below the seller's asking price. So on average, houses selling below the seller's asking price in the US right now. And also at 21% right now for houses selling over the seller's final list price. This is below 2021's levels as well, and of course 2022. Because back in 2022, the share was about 40%, so more or less double the share that we have right now. And speaking of houses selling below the seller's final list price, the average sale price to final list price ratio was approximately 98% for the 4 weeks ended January 15th. That means on average, home sellers sold their houses for approximately 2% below their final asking price. This is quite a bit different compared to the past couple of years. Back in 2022 at this time, houses were selling for the asking price. In 2021, they're selling for about 1% below. And right now they're about 2% below, which is more or less on par with 2020 back at this time. I also want to give you guys an update regarding the share of reduced price listings according to altosresearch.com. Right now, at a national level, the share of price drops is approximately 35%, which is obviously much higher compared to 1 year ago at 20%, 2 years ago at 21%, and pre-COVID back on January 31st, 2020, the share was about 26%. So share right now at 35% is at least a 3-year low or a 3-year high for that same time frame. But as you can see right here, which is just really unusual, the share of price drops has been more or less been decreasing ever since the end of November last year. It really peaked at around 43% around mid-November last year, but it has been declining more or less ever since then, going from about 43% now down to about 35%. Now I say this is a little bit unusual because back in 2022, we did see a decrease ever since really mid-October of 2021, but the decrease wasn't as drastic. We went from about, about 28% down to around 19.78%. This year going from about 43% down to about 35%. And the same thing happened in 2021. We did see a decrease in the last couple of months of 2020, but this year again, a sharp decrease in the number of reduced price listings in the US. With that said, please comment below your biggest takeaways from today's video. Also, if you guys got any value in this video whatsoever, then please hit the like button. I greatly appreciate that. Of course, I appreciate you. Hope you guys have an awesome day. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.